Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to completely rethink something humanity has pondered for millennia. Just imagine for a second that the moment a soul passes away, the destination isn't what we've been traditionally taught to expect here on Earth. No instant perfection, no immediate arrival at some ultimate finish line. Instead, what if the true afterlife is actually just the beginning of a massive, magnificent journey toward divine light? So, what if heaven isn't a destination, but a continuous journey? That is the core mystery we're diving into today, as we explore a totally fascinating early 20th century text called Through the Mist by Robert James Lees. It details a deeply metaphorical and captivating journey of spiritual growth, and it presents an entirely different framework for what happens when we leave this world. Okay, let's dive into this. Section 1, The Instant Heaven Myth. For centuries, we've kind of suffered under this deeply anxiety-inducing earthly ideal, this expectation of an abrupt passage where a flawed, potentially stained soul is just dropped directly into the king's presence. The text points out how terrifying that expectation of immediate perfection truly is. But the spiritual reality presented in this source material is much gentler. It's a gradual, safe climb. It requires preparation and growth, giving the soul the actual time it needs to get ready. Now, this whole text is actually structured as a beautiful, poetic conversation between two newly departed spirits. We've got a male newcomer who is full of questions, naturally, and a slightly more experienced female spirit who's guiding him. And what makes this so incredibly fascinating is that both of them were writers on Earth, so they use these gorgeous poetic metaphors to describe their new existence. Section 2, Waiting in the Vestibule. So the crucial point here is that before anyone reaches those grand heights of heaven, they have to start somewhere, right? Enter the vestibule of heaven. It's this beautiful waiting area that serves as a totally necessary buffer. It's a place of preparation and rest. The experienced spirit explains that a soul arrives with a hot, fevered brain and desperately needs a sanctuary to wash off the stains of their earthly travels. You can't just start playing heavenly music immediately. You have to tune your metaphorical harp first. To really capture this state, the female spirit actually shares a newly written poem. She says, "Waiting, where the rippling wavelets of life's river lave my feet, washing off the stains of travel, ere the master I may greet." What I absolutely love about this is how it shows that earthly talents, like her poetry, don't just end when we die. They actually continue to grow, expand, and flourish well beyond the grave. She goes on, adding, "Wait to understand the glory that will shortly be revealed. So we wait in preparation in the vestibule of heaven." And then she makes this mind-blowing point to her companion. She says she only learned the alphabet on Earth merely to spell the words she now uses for her songs in paradise. It completely reframes earthly life. It's not the final test. It's literally just the very beginning of our learning. Taking a quick pause here in our journey, we really have to ask a crucial question. Why is this waiting period so physically and spiritually necessary for the soul? Why can't we just skip right to the end? Section 3, Adjusting to the Divine Light. And this brilliantly illustrates why skipping to the end wouldn't just be hard, it would actually be downright dangerous. Sudden exposure to ultimate purity is something the newly departed soul simply isn't equipped to handle. The text uses this great metaphor of a recovering blind man to explain it. First, the soul arrives essentially blind to ultimate purity. Next, the divine light has to be introduced slowly, by degrees. Finally, the soul acclimates safely. The female spirit notes that God is simply too clever to allow a calamity. If all the glory were revealed at once, the overpowering brilliance would just crush the soul rather than uplift it. Which brings us to this incredibly profound takeaway regarding human potential. Genius of all kinds is born in the mortal state, but growth, expansion, and fruition are left to the afterlife. Literally, think about that for a second. The true fruition of our earthly talents only happens once we're entirely free from the world's discords. Earth is just where the seed is planted. The vestibule is where it finally gets the peace and quiet to truly blossom. Section 4, The Infinite Mountaineer. All right, so we've rested up in the vestibule, but now the real ascent begins. The spirits use an awesome comparison here to describe the actual mechanics of moving forward. Faith, they say, is like a tourist taking a massive leap straight to the mountain peak. It's beautiful and buoyant, but it really only carries imagination. The soul itself, however, is the actual laborer. It can't just magically leap to the top. It has to ascend the steep incline with caution, resting, and sometimes even slipping, exactly like a dedicated mountaineer facing a massive summit. Naturally, the male spirit poses a massive philosophical question to his guide, and really to us. Will we ever reach the end? Is there a grand finale to this climb? If we're constantly growing, adjusting to light, and scaling this mountain, does it ever actually stop? Well, the answer his guide gives is just beautifully logical. God is infinite, and because the Creator is limitless, the soul's journey toward divine light has to be an eternal progression of joyous growth. There is no static finale. Instead, the journey involves endless halting places, and each one expands our capacity for joy, reveals a new aspect of love, and prepares us for the next leg of this infinite climb. Now, this realization actually marks a big shift in their conversation. The spirits acknowledge that sometimes they try to send these truths back to Earth to sort of correct old misunderstandings. But as you can imagine, it's an incredibly hard challenge because the way earthly humans view divine communication is fundamentally different from how it actually operates in the spiritual realm. Section 5. A living, bubbling well. Now, what's really interesting here is how the spirits impartially contrast our earthly texts with divine reality. A printed book, while totally valuable, is essentially viewed as a stagnant pool capturing what was said thousands of years ago. It's a historical record. But the living word is an ever-present moving force. It's like a constantly bubbling well. The text argues that divine communication is an ongoing, expanding revelation of the present moment, not just something locked away in static history. Section 6. The Gospel of Love. So, what is the ultimate driving force behind this entire magnificent journey? Behind the vestibule, the mountain climb, the bubbling well, the whole shebang? It all resolves into one single pure force: love. The text describes love as the omnipresent mother and designer of the heavenly fields. It is literally the whisper of every tree, the breath of every flower, the architect of every single home in this realm, and the motive power behind every single act. Love isn't just an emotion here, it's the very fabric of their reality. And this creates an incredibly evocative reality. As the text says, love unaided designed the fields of heaven, fitted every bower, and spread each couch for the pilgrim's soul to rest. Love is the only theme that falls from heaven. It perfectly prepares those resting places in the vestibule so the weary traveler can recover, adjust to the light, and gear up for their eternal ascent. So as we wrap up this explainer on the journey toward divine light, I really want to leave you with this final thought-provoking question. If your earthly life is just learning the alphabet, what words are you preparing to spell in your eternal song? It's a pretty beautiful way to reflect on our own continuous growth, knowing that whatever we are learning and doing right now is just the very first step of an infinite, joyous climb. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep spelling out your own beautiful